that is a few hundred protesters and supporters of Donald Trump who showed up over the weekend in Mar-a-Lago or near Mar-a-Lago in anticipation of the arraignment, the historic arraignment that is to take place tomorrow, which is Tuesday. As you can see, there is quite a bit of a circus that is mounting around the indictment and the subsequent arraignment that is to follow tomorrow. The former president is expected to appear in the U.S. District Court in Miami to face those 37 counts that were revealed by special counsel Jack Smith last week. The criminal indictment, according to NBC News, against Donald Trump over his handling of classified documents records was unsealed, revealing those 37 counts. And among other allegations, the indictment says that Trump showed classified documents to other people in the summer of 2021 after leaving office in January of that year. The indictment was made public a day after a grand jury charged. Special emphasis on a grand jury charged Donald Trump in the case. And this is important because the language and the rhetoric that's coming from conservatives obviously is to blame the current president, Joe Biden. Joe Biden arrested. This is how they're saying it. Joe Biden had Donald Trump arrested. Well, in this case, there was a grand jury, the same federal grand juries that mirror similarly to the state grand juries that are convened in order to decide, the jury of your peers, so to speak, to decide whether or not you will be charged. Now, I'm not putting weight and emphasis on the process as though that process is unflawed. I will never forget what Bob McCullough did in the city of Ferguson in his job with a grand jury, sandbagging the entire case against Darren Wilson, the police officer who shot and killed Michael Brown. So I'm not putting this out there to say that our system of a grand jury system is without a flaw, but it is most certainly true that Donald Trump was indicted as a result of a jury of his peers who were gathered in a grand jury to make that decision. Now, security is going to be tight tomorrow because obviously this is a former president and the city of Miami has to accommodate for Secret Service and all of those considerations. But security is also going to be heightened because of the threats that are coming from conservatives as a result of the former president being held accountable, just being indicted. And that's really where I want to focus on this morning. I want you to listen to this clip from Kari Lake, who is the former candidate for governor in the state of Arizona. She lost to Katie Hobbs, but that has not prevented her from making an entire career of election denialism, right? She denies that she lost. And so, of course, she is going to be a massive supporter of the other person on the national stage who can't admit that he lost, Donald Trump. But she went beyond support. Listen to this thinly veiled threat from Kari Lake.
I have a message tonight for Merrick Garland and Jack Smith and Joe Biden. And the guys back there in the fake news media, you should listen up as well. This one's for you. If you want to get to President Trump, you're going to have to go through me, and you're going to have to go through 75 million Americans just like me. And I'm going to tell you, most of us are card-carrying members of the NRA. That's not a threat. That's a public service announcement.
Right, because threatening the second civil war is cute and funny. We are dealing with people who literally have militias preparing in the various forests around this country in preparation for a second civil war, and then to have an individual like Kari Lake, who is on the national stage, not out of merit, but out of grievance. She's from Arizona. In this clip, she was speaking to the Georgia Republicans ahead of Donald Trump, who came on stage a few minutes later. But she's on the national stage because she is an election denier. OK, and to have an individual on the national stage say this about 75 million Americans and we are all members of the NRA, and to get to Donald Trump, you're going to have to go through us. That is stochastic terrorism at its purest example, because she is inciting. Now, of course, whether or not that is incitement in the letter of the law, where she could be legally held accountable, that remains to be seen. But the rhetoric is such where she's pushing the envelope. And it's not just her, it's all over this country. People with platforms, are conservatives particularly, are pushing the envelope with their threatening rhetoric, leading to actual violence. And it is all in support of Donald Trump. Lindsey Graham took to the airwaves over the weekend. He spoke with George Stephanopoulos over on ABC News, and he subsequently had a meltdown because, well, to all of the journalists listening and to all the journalists in this country, follow-up questions really do rattle these politicians who are so unaccustomed to having to answer a follow-up question. Listen in.
This morning, Donald Trump has said repeatedly that he did nothing wrong. Do you believe that?
Well, here's what I believe. We live in an America where if you're the Democratic candidate for president, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, you can set up a private server in your basement to conduct government business. And when an investigation is had about your activity, no, let me finish.
But you didn't answer the question.
That was ridiculous. Well, yeah, I'm trying to answer the question from a Republican point of view. That may not be acceptable on this show.
He's always ready to cry. That might not be acceptable on this show. Just answer the question based on facts and not to try to pacify a Republican point of view, because the Republican point of view is absurd, as you will hear momentarily.
Most Republicans believe we live in a country where Hillary Clinton did very similar things and nothing happened to her.
Nothing happened to Hillary Clinton? You mean all of the investigations that happened never happened, Lindsey Graham? This is the thing about the conservative movement. They are committed to believing in alternate reality. They are 100% committed to believing something that is false, that is fake. They build this energy, this vested interest. It becomes an emotional attachment to them. These false narratives that these conservatives believe become so emotionally attached to them that they honestly can't tell the difference anymore between reality and the false narrative that they have convinced themselves of. If we want to talk about the things that both parties do that neither party holds the other party accountable for because they all do them, well, perhaps there are some things that every single politician in this country could be held accountable for that they're not. But as it pertains to this particular issue, Donald Trump was so cavalier and reckless with classified documents that it's almost now a joke. It is almost now so ridiculous that people look at Donald Trump and really question his cognitive capacity, or perhaps arrogance, pride, and ego are just so powerful that they make someone like Donald Trump even dumber than they already are.